Hey, what's up, comrades? So I played a game recently. It was Yes Your Grace, I think is what it's called. It's kind of like a kingdom management sim, sort of. It's not like a. There's I saw all sorts of like tags on this thing. I guess the creators of the game, No More Robots or whatever they're called, or maybe that's the publisher. I don't know. They're some British company, I think. They claim that they got inspiration from Crusader Kings and fuck, what was the other one? Oh, Papers, Please. And if you don't not familiar with Papers, Please, Paper Please is a delightful like game where you're like a bureaucrat on like a border of like a communist country essentially, or like a totalitarian country, and they're like kind of at odds with other countries around them. So you got to be like very careful. You're not letting in like resistance fighters or saboteurs or enemies of the state or whatever. And it's all done through like a mini game where you like check passports and check other things to make sure information is accurate. It's pretty delightful. I played through it. I got like a very mediocre ending where it's just like, and life goes on. But there's like extreme endings where you like join the revolution or you like put the revolution down with um, your socialist like brother and or whatever. So that's good stuff. Um, so I can kind of see that, and that I see that in like so the main thrust of the game is petitions. So you're a king, so you sit on your throne, and people come and make petitions to you for things like gold or supplies, or to have one of your advisors help them out. And there's three advisors you can have. Well, there's like your advisor who like gives you like advice, and then agents. That's what they call them in this game. There's three agents. There's the general, the witch, and the hunter. And what really threw me off in this game is that it shows a picture of like the general, and then it has a number one next to it. And then when you send them out, it says 0. So in my head, I was like, oh, so you can clearly get more generals. You cannot. I don't know why they have that. They should just have the picture and then not have the picture. But I guess putting the 0 there makes it's like more obvious that like, hey, your general's out doing stuff this week. You can't use them for other things. And what can you use them for? You can use them to solve petitions problems. So like a petitioner came in and is like, oh, these bandits are attacking our village. We need help. And so you can like you can send the general away for a couple of weeks. And there's a total of 50 weeks. There's a halfway point. I think it's at 30 weeks, I want to say. And then there's the final, which is at 50 weeks. And you have to meet like certain benchmarks, otherwise you like get a bad ending or you lose. I lost once. I ran out of like supplies. Let me get back to the agent. So you can send the general for a couple of weeks, and then you can't use them for other things. Same thing with the witch and the hunter is the last one. They all do different things when it comes to petitioners. But then oftentimes, I want to say around probably like week 10, you start having access to like the map, and you can send one of your agents, usually just at that point just the general, to go investigate different parts of your kingdom, and they'll find and bring back like stuff sometimes. And then later on, you need it to like interrupt like forces for the bad guys or to recruit members of like your army. The game has a real shift. The gameplay doesn't change at all, but it shifts like importance of certain aspects of the gameplay at that kind of like midway point. So we'll get to that when we talk about the story. The other thing you can do is you can leave your throne and you can wander around in your kingdom and talk to people. You can talk to people you've imprisoned, which is just for fun, and then you can talk to members of your family. And to get certain endings of the game, you got to like go and chat with members of your family. So the members of the king's family, there's the king, then his wife Aurelia, I want to say. They're super tight. They stick together through everything, and she's kind of good at like bouncing ideas off. And at some point, you have 3 daughters, so you need a son. Obviously, you need a son for an heir. So there's some stuff you can do about that. Then you have Louis. I can't remember her full name. That's just what they call her a lot. She's your oldest daughter. She is gone for a significant portion of the game because you marry her off pretty quickly. Then there's I can't remember her full name. You keep referring to her as like AS. And she's like more of like your middle rebellious child who wants to sword fight and do other things and not really be a princess. And then there's Pumpkin is the nickname I gave her. I think it's Cedri or something like that. She's your youngest daughter. She loves inviting animals. Her whole storyline is the most fun, if you will. The oldest daughter is the most sad. The youngest daughter is the most fun. And the middle daughter I really did not give 2 fucks about what was going on in her life most of the time. It was just kind of like she was kind of annoying, and she treated her sisters like badly by playing pranks on them, and then she like was like, I'm gonna nope out. You can either approve or disapprove. So I'm like, I guess I approve if you're just gonna leave anyway. Like fuck. So yeah, whatever. She kind of sucked. Well, let's see. Then you can send missives through a pigeon to invite like lords in your kingdom to come, and that's important for like you can like make alliances with different lords, and sometimes making an alliance with one lord will block you out of the alliance with another lord, which is fun. Kind of like a visual novel, a dating sim kind of situation. So, but you got to balance like what you want and then kind of like the story vibe. There is some role-playing aspects to it. I would not call this a role-playing game, as some people like refer to it, because there's nothing role-playing game about it. It's a strategy sim with some like role-playing elements, which most games throughout all, even Doom, there's some role-playing elements. Like, why am I killing these demons? Because I hate them. Fuck those demons. You know, you say to yourself in your head. This is a little more overt because there's certain choices you can make about the kind of king you want to be, the kind of people you want to help or dishelp, or like, you know, there's a couple like significant choices. There's not a whole lot. A lot of it's just like dealing with petitions, and then every now and then you can make like a choice that will affect like the ending, and that's really your role-playing aspect. There's not different endings per se, as much as there's different endings for like the major characters. The major characters are like you, your advisor, your wife, your your 2 daughters. We'll get to that, and your eldest daughter's like husband. But that's it, and they're not always like super straightforward. And one involves like kind of its own little mini game where you gotta like. It's not, but you don't have to. You just have to choose like the right answers, and you have like a little bit of a time. Most choices in this game have no time limit. There's the ones with that deal with your wife near the end of the game are mostly timed, and then there's a couple others that are like timed as well. All right, so I think that's all the aspects of the game. Yeah. Okay. So the overarching narrative is you're the king of a kingdom that's like under a curse, quote unquote, and it's under some kind of like rough times. So you don't really have like a large standing army, and you don't have like a lot of resources coming in, and things have been pretty kind of down. But you know, even it's been fine kind of situation. It's like, well, as long as nothing destroys this equilibrium, we can like keep moving along as we're moving along. And then you get threatened that this Byron guy, who's the king of Radovia, who's these like barbarians from like the northern mountains, he's coming because at some point when he was like a brigand, he broke into your house and threatened to kill your wife unless you promise like the hand of your daughter in marriage. And now your daughter's like 13, I think it was 13, and so now she can get married. So now he's coming, and you better keep your end of the deal. And you're like, no, I'm not gonna fucking do that. I need to get an army so I can fight his army, because apparently this guy became king because he allied with some witch and like united a bunch of forces and yada yada yada. And it seems very threatening, and you're very concerned. And so you reach out to a friend of yours, this King Talus, who's from like a distant kingdom, and he's got 3,000 troops, which is a lot because you have like 100. And he comes out and he's like, yeah, I'll give you all the troops. I don't give a fuck. But I need my son needs a marriage, so he's gonna marry your eldest daughter. And then I want to stay here in like your library, and I want to like search for a cure for my wife's like disease that she has. And you're like, cool, sounds good on both accounts. And your eldest daughter is like super sad about it. She goes in like mourning for like a while, from almost up until like the wedding, which is like a few weeks out. But you feel pretty content. You're like, 3,000 troops will be great. And so then the wedding comes, and everything goes smoothly until the king, Talus, the other king, not King Davern, who is you, Eric. So King Talus drinks and is poisoned, and he dies. And so his son Ivo becomes king, and he says that you did this, that you need to prove that it's not you. And he's taking his troops, and he's taking his new wife, and he's going back, and that there needs to be a royal trial before he'll come help with like the Redivian thing. And then you're like, oh fuck me, this is terrible, everything's bad. And then you just kind of work your way up to like eliciting the help from the lords. And so you know, there's various like not factions, but certain lords. Like there's one lord who's like kind of doing like a drug trade on the side, and there's a lord who's like totally opposed to that, so you can't ally with both of them. There's this other lord, Lady Lena, who will only help you if you promise to marry your second daughter to her oldest son. And then like let's see, there's a guy who's like goes around and kills dragons, or at least pretends to, and there's a guy who's drunk and old and hates that guy because he's like taking his shine, and they fight. as in politically fight. Like you can only be allied to one. There's some people are just like, hey, as long as you kill a bunch of the Rhodavians, I'll join you. And then you actually capture one at some point. And you send him over to her, and she's like, high five. And then there's a couple ladies who will join you and give you resources and kind of build up your. This is like the sim part, but only if you capture like a thief or like capture like a guy pretending to be a merchant, but he is actually just like screwing nobles over. So there's a lot of that. And then meanwhile, you're just like doing other shit and trying to find. Eventually, a witch joins you. So you start with just the general, and eventually a witch joins you, and then a hunter joins you. And then there's a lot of like cute side stuff with your daughters, like the middle child like makes friends with this Maya girl, and they sword fight, and of course they're lesbians, which should be cool and hot. But again, the whole thing is just like kind of barely there, and then it's kind of boring, and then it's over, and you're like, all right, well, I don't really care about that at all. The youngest daughter is delightful. She has like a porcupine. She has a snail and then a porcupine, and that snail saves her life. And then that porcupine, and then a fox, and then a bear. And she keeps gathering these like she calls them her agents, and she sends them on missions, which usually causes them to be dead. But it's pretty cute and pretty fun. At some point, you're like, man, I got to get a fucking heir. So you bang out your wife. And she gets pregnant, and then you have to do a ritual to like remove the curse, saying you can't have, so you don't have like another daughter, and so your wife lives. That takes place later. But so the first half of the game, before the Rhodavian thing, is all centered around doing an investigation of who could have possibly killed the King Talus, by finding items around the castle, by using your witch and your hunter and your general to investigate things, by sending them out on missions. But the biggest thing is like bringing lords in and enlisting them, because you need at least 1,000 troops to be successful in the battle that you're going to. And so once week like 30 or whatever hits, the battle commences, and Ivo comes with your daughter and stuff, and you find out he's abusive towards her, and he's a real asshole. And you do the trial, and essentially you have three choices of lords you can do. You can do the drug lord, you can do the lord who wants to marry her son to your daughter, and then you can do the guy who's like maybe or maybe not like a dragon hunter. And if you choose none of those, then Audrey, who's your advisor, will just like say he'll take the blame, he did it, and they get sacrificed. And I chose Lady Lena, because I was like, man, my daughter's clearly a lesbian and wants to bang this like Maya girl who ends up being one of these barbarian ladies, like she's part of that like race or whatever. Man, fuck you. Plus, I was using this guide to make sure I didn't like fuck up, and I was looking ahead a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, so my daughter doesn't actually marry this lady, and then she doesn't marry this lady's son because he dies, and then she like removes support anyway, so fuck her. So, so I was like, there's no point. While the drug lord keeps giving me money forever, and then the other guy keeps giving me supplies forever. So I was like, man, clearly that is the wrong choice. And I like Audrey; he's a cool bro, and so lifelong best friends forever. All right, so that's all fun and good times. So she dies. We go to the battle. We do some archery stuff, and so the battle. There's two battles. The battles are a little different. You like click on things. I don't know if you can like fail them as long as you're like prepared. But there's like, oh no, they got beasts or they have fire. We got to send out like our shield soldiers. You click on the shield soldier and like go. And every time you get archers, like archers shoot. And so it's not like, I almost feel like the battles are just like a glorified cutscene. Like I didn't feel like it was any challenge to figure out what to do, or I needed to like, there's no way I could have like failed unless I just like was really trying hard to fail. But eventually your forces start to get overwhelmed. And so you call in Ivo's 3,000 because he promised those to you, and he doesn't show up. And you get the missive from your daughter, and she's like, no help's coming because this guy's trying to stab you in the back. Because that's what he was trying to do the whole time. Dun, dun, dun. We don't find out the full scope until the end of the game, but this guy's like a total asshole. Okay, so then then there's an avalanche. So we miraculously win the battle, and then we get a missive the next week, because it goes every week's like a turn. The next week, in like week 31, from Ivo saying that he's going to come and that we should have died, and that he believes that I killed his father, and so he's going to get his revenge. He's going to come down with an army and kill us. And so now we have to but we don't. we used up like all our lords' armies. I really appreciate this part. So like we're down to like 10 troops. Because like they just got slaughtered. Or maybe maybe it's 20 or 30. But the Redivians got completely wiped out, right? And they had like 5,000 people at some point. So that was pretty impressive on our end. Anyway, so then we're like, okay, well we need help. We gotta go out further. So we hold a council of kings, and then there's 3 kings. There's King 1, who wants you to kill all Redivians and wipe them off the face of the planet. There's King 2, who wants you to show mercy to Redivians after you defeated them. And there's King 3, who's an old man who wants to fuck our middle daughter, who again is a lesbian. So I'm like, hell no, you can go fuck yourself to that guy. And then I decide I'm gonna help the Redivians because Maya's a Redivian and she's technically my daughter-in-law at this point. They don't come out till later in the game, but it was pretty fucking obvious this is where it was going to go, because this is a game made after 2020, or released at least. So, which is fine. Again, my issue is not with that at all. My issue is that it's just kind of boring, very obvious what's going to happen, and it's like every time you interact with her, it's like I know exactly where this is going, and so it's just not very interesting. And it's usually like, I want a sword fight more. I want more freedom. Wah, 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 wah. And you're like, okay, you can have it, you can have it, you can have it. And then my youngest daughter comes in and she's like, Az put a bunch of like stinging needle into my bed and I don't know why. And you're like, why did you do that? And she's like, I was bored. And you're like, man, go fuck yourself. Like what a pompous asshole. Like get out of my cast. Go with your lesbian wife and get the fuck out of here and go do whatever you guys are going to do. Stop pestering your younger sister. Jesus Christ. So that's why she's just kind of annoying. I did not feel like she was a very good character. At some point, she got a little more sympathetic, as in like she's like, I'm sad about stuff, and I feel like I wish I could have done more. And I'm like, okay, this is better. But up until that point, it's just kind of like she's just kind of like, you're kind of annoying. I don't have a lot of sympathy for you. You should just go do whatever the fuck you're gonna do. I don't care. So where were we? Okay. So the second half is now you gotta, and so you're talking with Audrey, and you're like, well, I don't know what to do, and he's like, well, he has 3,000 troops, we know that for a fact, but a siege is pretty tough. So if we set up a siege very well, we don't need a lot of people to like protect the castle. So we should be able to hold off, and then if we can get one of these kings to help us, they'll have a couple thousand, of troops or whatever. And so even if they just have 1,000, that should be enough because the siege should like really take care of a lot of it. And you're like, all right, cool. So then we just choose to be like very kind to the Redivians and help them out because that he was like the least asshole of a king as well. He just seemed like a chill bro, and I was like, yeah, hell yeah. So we're gonna redeem the barbarians, and then we end up meeting some of these people. We meet a group of women and children and barbarians who are like, oh, we had nothing to do with the war. We just came over here because there's a huge civil war in like Redivia, and we just don't want anything to do with it, and we were trying to escape. And you're like, all right, here's some food and stuff, like be safe. And then we meet the king, the guy who was going to come steal my daughter away, and he was like, oh no, that was all a misunderstanding. I wasn't trying to threaten you. I was just saying like, hey, you made a promise, so I'm coming to like for the promise. And he's like, well, and then my guy's like, well, why did you have like all these troops? And he's like, well, because there's a civil war, and I just told people like, hey, I'm leaving, and I might marry this royal, so then maybe we'll have some sway in like the kingdom over there. So if you want to try like a better life, So it was like all a big misunderstanding. And we met him out in the field of battle, and he was like, oh fuck, they're here to like fight us. I guess we have to fight back. It was a whole lot of that bullshit. And then a lot of like when you're doing the battle, there's all this like, oh, magic fog, or oh, magic beasts. And when we're talking to the Rhodesian king, he's like, oh no, those are just like bison we have in Rhodesia. Or Rhodavia, you've just never seen them. Or like, oh no, we just like had fireworks. There wasn't like a fire magic beast. That being said, there is magic in this game, in this world, and there is like real dragons and stuff. So it's all like, oh, there is magic, but these barbarians had like no access to it. They just had like random bullshit that was going on that just like from a distance seemed like much worse than it really was. And they just had like a mass amount of people who were trying to like defend themselves. So we let him go free as well. We're like, all right, whatever. And there's one other thing I think we do where it's like, oh, we're gonna like be at peace with the Rhodevians and just let them live. And so we get access to, I think it's like King Fabian or something, so that he'll come save us from the final siege battle. And then we just do other stuff to set up the siege. Part of like at the end of every week, you have like this screen where it's like, do you want to pay for your troops? Do you want to build fortifications? Do you want to have like a carnival? All this bullshit. And you also have a contentment meter, which I don't know if that ever did anything, but I had it pretty high, like 170 or 80 or something. So I'm assuming it was important to have that because I'm essentially eliciting aid from like all my people to like fight. So all the people I did favors for, all the people I bailed out of like their bullshittery or like helped them find love or whatever, or like this drunk guy I gave money to so he could like change his life and not be a drunk asshole anymore. They all come with like, and it's every time you get one of these guys to help you, it's always like 6 more troops, and you need to hit 100, and at the same time you're trying to build. Okay, so the second part of the game, reaching out to people for aid, like other lords, I never did a single time. Now, if you want your daughter to marry the one king, you would use it for that. The drug dealer guy, if you can buy drugs from merchants and then sell them to him for like an advanced rate. I never did that. You can sell paintings around your castle for more money or supplies. Or if you find like teeth from animals, you can sell them to like the arrogant lord guy who's like a hot shot and kills dragons. But that's it. That's the only time you'd ever use that. And I never used it. Not a single time. So what was like the most important thing in the first half of the game was not... I never used it a single time in the second half of the game. And then this map searching thing becomes super prescient. So like I was like dumping gold to solve people's problems. So then I could the next week send one of my agents out to like recruit them to gain more like followers and to get more contentment. So that was like the main focus. Like I was like emptying the coffers of like all this money I'd built up in the first half of the game just to like be able to have more my agents like search this stuff out. And then at the same time, we hire this other witch who is like, we're going to do a ritual to remove the curse so that you have a son and your wife survives or whatever. And so I have to go find all these fucking things or buy them from merchants and stuff. And then I have to like find a book in my library that's going to give me like the magic spell I need to like resolve this whole situation. So, whew, that's all good stuff. My daughter comes out and then she declares her love and then she's like, I'm going to leave with her. And I'm like, all right, you probably should, just in case things don't go well here. You guys can at least be happy and safe and find true love and whatever. And then your youngest daughter gets like a bear pet, which is super important because that bear like fucks up some dogs that get released into our castle during the siege and like protect my family. So that's great. Oh, and then we have to sacrifice supplies to get supply crates. And we need at least 5, but I got 10 so I could just unload every turn and make sure my people and my soldiers, my family were like well fed and everyone was taken care of. During this time period as well, we find out that our eldest daughter, Louis, is she's abused some more, and then she's declared to be like a witch, and she's burnt to the stake alive. So again, it really bummed me out. And her cat gets like skinned alive and killed before that happens. It's a lot of sad stuff. We get like letters from her, and then we get a letter from the king declaring like Ivo that he did all this stuff because he's an asshole, right? All right. So then once the siege begins, and then we fight like 3 weeks of siege. And finally, right at the last minute, when like everything seems lost because they finally broke through the gates and they're rushing in, and even though they don't, we brought them from like 3,000 down to like a couple hundred. They still have more, and they're probably going to win. And then at the last second, King Fabian like rolls in on his white fucking like the like a Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and like beats the shit out of him, and so we win. And then we get to the final portion of the game, which is to determine what we're going to do with King Ivo. And then get all our ending. So during this last portion of the game, we find out that killing Ladalina was unnecessary because she obviously didn't do it. It was actually Ivo because he's an asshole, and he wasn't trying to kill his father. He was trying to poison Eric, the main character, because he was gonna I'm gonna marry this dumb bitch and be abusive to her, and then I'm gonna kill her dad, so then I become the king because he doesn't have an heir. And then once I'm a king, I'll show my dad how great I am, and then I can like find a cure for my mom, and then I can take over both kingdoms, and it's going to be super awesome, and I'll be the best ever. And he like admits all this in front of like everybody, and you're like, well, you're a fuck you, right? So then I can decide if I want to behead him or put him in the prisons, and I put him in the prison because fuck him, man. That like, what's he gonna do? He's just gonna be fucked. And I'd rather him be tortured and then kill him. I don't want to give him the pleasure of like an easy out. Right. And then his whole kingdom's going to be like in disarray because they have like a dying queen and no king because he's being held in another place. It's a very Crusader Kings of me to be like, nah. We're not killing this guy in prison forever. Fuck you. Oh, Crusader Kings is so good. Yeah, and that's the end of the game. Okay, so then the endings I got, and it seems like the endings you can get. So you can kill or leave Ivo alive. Leaving him alive, there was some mention of like, oh, there were people in Ivo, like factions that were trying to come rescue him when they were causing some violence in your kingdom, but nothing that bad. And then I had a healthy baby son. He's going to be the heir, the new Prince Eric II, and everything's going to work out well. Peace and prosperity. My daughter Cedri is like things are going well. She's happy. She's got like her bear pet, and she continues to be like a delightful human being. As we never see again, we get like letters from her periodically about her and Maya's adventure, and I was like, that is the best possible ending. Like that a stupid, annoying bitch can, and her actual delightful like wife or whatever, who Maya is much more interesting and delightful than Az is. So I'm glad she took her off my hands. And literally at some point I'm like, all right, we'll keep her safe, make sure she stays out of trouble. And Maya's like, will do. And she's like, hey, and I'm like, yeah, you dumb cunt. I like my daughter-in-law a lot more than I like you. That's for damn sure. Anyway, so they go out on adventures, and then Audrey and me just stay bros forever, and that's it. That's like the endings. So you can get like bad endings where people die and aren't around, or Maya has to go to the other king, essentially sex slavery kind of situation and all that sad stuff. But it was pretty good. So how do I like Yes or Grace overall? It was fine. I don't know if I'd recommend it. It was kind of like, it wasn't that long, but a lot of it was just like the same tedious thing over and over again. And I didn't think any of the story or like the execution was like super groundbreaking. Now, they are releasing a sequel to this game this year, and I would check it out. It was that's the thing. I like vaguely enjoyed myself, but there's like a lot of parts of the game where I was like, this would be better. This could be so much better with like a little tweaking or a little more Crusader Kings, to be completely honest, and a little less Papers, Please. Because that's the same way I felt about Papers, Please. I played it once, and I was like, this is all right. Like, it's well put together. It's very interesting. If this guy makes another game, like whatever, The Sinking of the Oberdin, I will play it at some point in the future because it's like interesting enough of an idea, and I feel like this guy has some chops and knows what he's doing. But in terms of like, would I recommend this? I'm like, not really. I mean, it's like if you want like kingdom drama and all that stuff, Crusader Kings is the way to go. Crusader Kings 3 specifically is the way to go. Super great. Just hilarious romp all around. Because you can like do anything. They can't do anything, but there's a lot more. That's the thing. It's like all the kingdom management stuff is like so. It's like if you've never played Crusader Kings or if you've never played like a historical sim or like a management sim, this is like a nice entryway to that because it's enjoyable. It's pretty straightforward. Some of the characters are very interesting to deal with, and like it kind of holds your hand through it. So it's not bad, but definitely be like. And I'm looking at averages, right? Like 5 is like an average game that's like you could play and you forget about it and you don't regret playing it, but it's fine. And this would be like a 6.5 maybe. Like there's nothing. It worked perfectly fine. Everything was fine. Systems all work as provided. It was just there wasn't like much of a challenge, and I feel like there's like almost no challenge because you can just get different endings. So the game will just proceed forward. So if you want like a certain ending, you have to do certain things. But it's not clear what those things are until you like beat the game once, and then it's like now I'm playing this game again to get these endings, which are literally just like a couple of sentences on like a splash screen. So like, why would I do that? I don't care. But yeah, that's Yes or Grace. It was fine. I'm definitely gonna check out that sequel someday. But yeah, there you go. Cool. Catch y'all later.